Hey all, welcome back to my channel. Today's class will be a full body beginner friendly workout. So this is great if you're new to Pilates, or maybe you're returning after an injury, or maybe you just want a slightly gentler flow. So we're going to start by lying on our backs. So coming down onto the mat, bringing those feet flat on the floor, your arms down by your side. The feet are going to come to settle on the mat, hip distance apart. So that's the feet are in line with those hip bones rather than the outsides of those hips. So maybe slightly narrower than you might think. And now we're just going to bring some awareness to the hips. We're just going to inhale as we tip that pelvis forwards, creating that small gap underneath the lower back. And then exhale as you sink that belly button down, imprint that spine so there's no gap between the lower back and the mat. So working between these two positions, inhale, tip that pelvis forwards. And then exhale, sink the belly button down, tip the pubic bone up towards the sternum, but don't lift those glutes off the floor. So you're just tipping and tucking the pelvis forwards and backwards, just trying to isolate this movement through those hips, through the lower back. So this movement might be pretty small. We're just starting to mobilize through the pelvis. And now we're going to come to settle in a position that's between both of those extremes. So you should find your neutral pelvis. We're going to bring those hands to this diamond shape and just place it on top. We've got 3 points in a triangle shape. The 2 hip bones and then the pubic bone. So we just want to find a place where all of those 3 points are nice and level. Imagine you can balance a cup of tea on top of that and it won't spill. This is what we call our neutral pelvis. We're going to try and find that throughout the class. And now let's bring some awareness to the breath. So let's place the hands on the side of the rib cage. And I want you to inhale through the nose, feel that rib cage expanding sideways into your hands. And then exhale through the mouth. Feel the rib cage knitting back together. And again, we inhale through the nose, expand that rib cage sideways. Exhale through the mouth. In your own time, just breathing in through the nose and exhaling through the mouth. Focus on that rib cage expansion, expanding the ribs to the side of the room. And then drawing them back in as we exhale for one final time. And then we're going to bring those hands on top of the pelvis. We're finding that neutral pelvis position. And then we're going to keep this as we move through the next sequence. So pull that belly button down. As we exhale, we're going to lift our right leg up to this tabletop position. And then inhale, tap it back down. Switching over to the left. And then tapping down back on the mat. So we're moving side to side, trying to minimize any movement through the rest of the body. That torso is staying still, the pelvis is staying still, and that belly button is pulling down. If you feel comfortable, maybe bring those hands back down towards the mat. And then keep this movement going just on that right side. So we're trying to keep the angle behind the knee at roughly 90 degrees. So as that leg shifts away, you might need to drift even further forward than you think to keep that angle. We're going to finish off this last one, reaching up, then tapping away, placing that foot back down on the mat and switching over to the left side now. Just moving up and down through the left leg. Again, sinking the belly button down towards the mat. Keep that torso still. As we reach those toes away, drift it back above your hip. We're going to hold this one here. Come to the toes of that right foot and then switch in the air. We alternate those legs. As one toe touches down, the other leg lifts off so the knee comes above the hip. And then we switch. And I really want you to think of that belly button sinking down still. This movement is coming from the core more than anything else. I want you to try not to grip onto the mat with your hands. We're relaxing the upper body, relaxing the shoulders, relaxing the neck. And then after our last one, placing both feet back down on the floor, bringing them roughly hip distance apart again. Your arms are still long by your sides. We're going to exhale as we sink that belly button down into the mat and then press through those heels. We're going to lift those glutes up off the floor, gently roll up through the spine, find the top of that glute bridge, and then gently melting your spine back down in towards the mat, one vertebrae at a time. When you get to the bottom, we sink that belly button again, press through those heels, roll back up through the spine. So just moving up and down in your own time, going for some pelvic curls. At the top, really focus on that pelvic tuck. Getting those hips as high as possible, but try not to flare those ribs, sinking that rib cage down. And then rolling back down, sinking the upper back, mid back, lower back, and then the glutes. Press through those heels again as we roll up through the spine, leading with those hips. And then melting back down in towards the mat. Our last roll up, we're going to lift through those hips, hold it at the top. Keep those hips high as we inhale, open those knees out towards the side. Exhale, squeeze them back together. Inhale, we roll onto the outsides of those feet. Exhale, draw them back together. So opening and closing those knees. Option if you want, reach those arms towards the sky. Palms facing each other. Keep those knees moving. Think of using those inner thighs each time those legs come back towards the center. Each time they come back towards parallel. Last one, we draw them into the center. We're going to lift through those heels and then squeeze the heels back down towards the floor. Just lifting and lowering through the ankles, through the lower part of the leg. This time those hips are staying completely still. Now we're going to switch and lift through the balls of those feet. Inhale as we lift, exhale, drift them back down towards the mat. Again, just isolating that part of our body. Just finishing that last one. Now as we roll down through the spine, we're going to stretch those arms up and overhead. Feel that stretch. Exhale, squeeze that pelvis up towards that glute bridge as you reach those arms back above your chest. Inhale, lower those hips, reach those arms overhead. So moving those hips, moving those arms together in opposite directions. They're kind of helping to counterbalance your weight, counterbalance that force. Squeeze towards each other. As you lift those hips high, draw those arms above your chest. And then this time just bring those arms back down by your sides, palms flat on the floor. And then gently roll back down through your spine, one vertebrae at a time. Then we sink the belly button down, lift through the hips, find that glute bridge one more time. Lift through that right leg. Inhale, tap those right toes back down. Exhale, lift it back up to tabletop. So we're just moving through this right side. Like we did at the start, this time our hips are lifted. If you need, go back to that previous version with the hips resting on the mat. If not, focus on keeping those glutes tucked. Really tuck them underneath. Now we can shift the weight into that right foot and then move through that left leg. Focus on keeping those hips both at the same height. So try not to let that left hip drop. We're pressing down into the floor with those hands, keeping those shoulders open. Last one, we lower that foot down, re-engage with those glutes, squeeze back up, reach towards the sky. We're going to inhale, drop those hips all the way down towards the mat. And then bring those hands behind the head, interlace those fingers. Let that rib cage flare for a moment. And then draw those ribs in, lift those elbows up off the floor. Inhale, lower those elbows again. Exhale, draw them back up. So we're just lowering and lifting. Each time you lift those elbows, feel that wrap around your rib cage. Feel the drawing in of your core. The next one, we exhale, we lift the head, neck and chest, look between those inner thighs. And then inhale, we lower back down. Exhale, we lift, look between those inner thighs, sink the belly button more. And then inhale, we lower. Try and keep those elbows nice and wide, just in your peripheral vision. And really interlace those fingers right into the webbing. This is so that we can support the head and the neck. Think of a force in two opposite directions. Your hands are pushing into your head, but your head is pushing back into your hands at the same time. And as we lift off, I want you to think of those lower ribs drawing down towards those hip bones. Everything's drawing down and in. Use that breath. Exhale as we lift, find the shoulder blades lifting off the floor. And inhale as we lower. The next one, we exhale, we hold it up at the top. We're going to inhale, pause for a moment, keep that torso still, and then exhale, rotate over towards your right, just past that right knee. Inhale back through the center, exhale to the left. So we're just rotating side to side here, trying to keep those shoulder blades off the floor the whole time. Imagine your body is through a tube, almost like you're in a Smarties tube. And we're just squeezing, rotating, not too far, just past that knee, and then back through the center. keeping that opposite shoulder blade lifted off the floor. And then last one, we can lower that torso down towards the mat. Exhale, squeeze straight back up through the center. Looking between those inner thighs, we're going to lift one leg up to tabletop, lift the other leg up to meet it, and then add that rotation as we extend the opposite leg away. Rotate to the other side, squeeze that elbow towards that knee, inhale back through the center. So exhale each time you rotate, elbow to opposite knee, find that reach, find that squeeze, inhale back through the center. Extending the opposite leg away, finding that full extension, really straightening behind the back of that knee, and then drawing back in. Shoulder blades again, staying lifted if you can. Elbows nice and wide. And think of that whole torso rotating, not just the head and the neck, but all the way from the hips upwards. Last one, we lower back down through the center. Reach those arms long by your sides. Those palms flat on the floor, and we're going to keep those knees directly above those hips. We're going to squeeze those legs together, squeeze the inner thighs towards each other, squeeze those ankles, squeeze the knees. Move the legs as one unit now. They drift over to the left, the right hip rolls off the floor. Exhale, use your core to pull yourself back through the center. Inhale, drift the legs over to the other side. The left hip rolls off the floor. Exhale, use your core to pull yourself back through the center. So we're just drifting those legs side to side. That opposite shoulder, that opposite rib cage is resisting that movement and is keeping you glued down onto the floor. And don't let those knees come apart. So make that movement smaller if you need to. And we want to try and keep those knees nice and in line with each other. So as they drift over to one side, think of lifting that top hip really high up off the floor so we keep those knees nice and in line. When we get back to the center now, we're going to drop one foot down and then the other foot down back on the mat. And just lift yourself around, swivel yourselves around so you're facing the front, sideways on your mat. We're just going to bring that underneath, forearm down, and then lift away from that underneath side of the waist. So we're not sinking into that waist, not sinking into that shoulder. We want those feet in line with those hips. And then we're just going to open out that top knee and then close it back down. So we're lifting through that top glute, really working the side of the glute to lift and open that knee and then close it back down. The whole time still keeping that underneath shoulder down away from that ear, staying lifted out of that waist. Just keep the movement going here and just keep that breath natural. Maybe you want to exhale through the mouth each time that knee lifts. The next time we lift, we're going to hold it up there at the top. Keep that thigh still and just extend away, extending from that knee and then bending it back in. Close the knee back down to meet the other one. We exhale, we open, extend that leg away, point through those toes, bend it back in, lower back down. So we want to try and keep that thigh completely still as we extend the underneath part of that leg. And then bend it back in, lower back down. The next time we lift off, we're going to hold it up there. We're going to square off those hips. We're going to shift that leg back behind us slightly and then flex through the foot, drift that leg forwards. Point through the toes, drift the leg back, flex the foot, drift the leg forwards. So just drifting forwards and backwards with that top leg. Trying to isolate this movement just through the leg. So we're keeping our upper body completely still. We're not shifting that torso forwards and backwards. We're just isolating from those hips downwards. One more, flexing forwards, feel that hamstring stretch. And then point the toes, drift it back, feel the stretch through the front of your hips. Last one, we hold it in the center. We're going to flex the foot, lift the leg an inch, draw it down. Lift an inch, draw it down. Just moving up and downwards. Keep breathing through the glute burn. Still lifting out of that underneath side of the waist. Last one, we lower that foot down, bend that knee in, and then just reach up and over, reaching towards those toes, feeling a stretch down the side of your waist, and then reaching up and over opposite direction. Breathing into the side of the rib cage. And then shift your way around, swivel around so that you can come onto the opposite side, opposite forearm, and again lift that waist away from the floor, pull that shoulder down away from that ear. Hips are nice and in line. We exhale as we open up that knee. Inhale as we tap it back down. Going for these clamshells again. Opening and closing through that top leg. Staying open through the torso. The next time we lift off, we're going to extend that leg away, bend it back in and close back down. So going for those extensions again, finding that full range each time we lift the leg away, reach, point those toes, and then bend it back in, close it back down. So really feeling this work through the thigh as you extend, find that reach, find that elongation. Each time finding even more length. Last one, we hold it at the top, square off those hips. Drift the leg back behind you slightly and then flex through the foot as you drift the leg forwards and point through the toes as you drift the leg backwards. Again, we're just hinging from that hip downwards, torso staying completely still. Still keep pushing down into that forearm, pull those shoulders away from those ears. Trying to keep that leg at the same height, roughly hip height. Last one, we hold it in the center, flex the foot, lift the leg a couple inches and then drop a couple inches, lifting and lowering. Feeling that work through the upper glute, trying to keep those hips nice and stacked. We finish that last one, lower that leg down, reach up and over towards those toes. And then up and over, opposite direction. Maybe you want to rest that forearm down on the mat. And then coming back through the center, swivel yourselves around so we can come to our all fours position. Our shoulders above our wrists and our hips above our knees. We're going to start by moving that right arm, that left leg, just gliding across the floor and then drawing back underneath ourselves. And again, reaching away, find that length and then glide across the floor again. Keeping that body weight nice and central, we reach away again and then drift underneath. Keep that torso facing down, we reach away, and then this time we're going to lift off the mat, find that length, and then lower back down, drag back in. Reach away, and then we lift off, lower back down to tap, draw back in. Staying aware of keeping that body weight nice and central, hips trying not to shift side to side too much. And then each time we find that length, really think of reaching those fingers away from those toes. We're going to pause at the top. And then we're going to draw small circles with that leg, just in one direction, circling from that hip, and then switching opposite way. Just small circles inwards, and then we lower back down towards the mat. We're going to switch opposite sides, so drift the left arm, right leg backwards, and then back underneath yourself. Just gliding along the floor to start with, again focusing on staying nice and central through your center. Weight not shifting side to side too much. The next time we reach away, we're then going to lift off the ground. Lower back down, draw them both back in. So adding that lift each time. Think of the length as well as that lift. Fingers reaching away from those toes. And now as we lift off, we're going to hold it up there. Pausing for a moment, find that reach, and then draw small circles with that leg. Just one direction to start with, and then switching opposite way, small circles inwards, pointing through those toes, and then we lower back down towards the floor. We're back in our all fours. We're going to tuck those toes underneath. Exhale as we lift those knees up off the floor, inhale, tap them back down. Exhale, push the floor away so that those knees hover off. Inhale, tap those knees back down. So we're just lifting and lowering. Focus on pulling those shoulder blades apart, pushing the floor away. And think of that belly button pulling up away from the floor, still pulling towards the back of the spine. This next one, we hold it at the top. Keep breathing deeply here, just holding for a few counts. And then we can lower those knees back down. Take a moment to stretch off those wrists in the opposite direction. Maybe you want to shift that weight forwards and backwards. Just taking a little wriggle through the spine, feeling the stretch through the wrists. And then we're just going to inhale as we open up the chest, looking towards the sky. And exhale as you round through the spine, tuck underneath with the pelvis. Inhale as you pull that chest through, arch through the back. Exhale, round through the spine, pull the belly button up. Just moving between that again, going for your cat and cows. Stretching off through the back, mobilizing through the spine. And then sending the bum back towards the heels, rolling up through the spine. And we're finished. Thank you for joining me. Let me know how you got on and hopefully see you next time.